I just told you, I just went to the Alliance Summit in Oklahoma, and I know it. I was the dumbest guy in the room. And that's not a knock on myself. That's a statement of fact of like with everything that I heard in there, one of the worst things that ever happened to us is that we've been successful with our model, which is I'm a ball player and I can teach you how to play and I can make those kids look good on the field and I can train, But that doesn't take care of the recruiting in the select program or the assessments for pitchers. Right now, I do want to go on record as saying this. The reality is in today's recruiting is that college coaches are using measurements and assessments and data to get like
advanced metrics.
Yeah, the minutia of it.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you have 5'11" kids and you have motion capture that can show, whether these two fingers are coming off equally or this one's coming off a little more or arm side run, or they're looking at those things. I was just telling the story about Bridget Nemeth. She was on one of Sean's teams. She goes into Penn, I believe it's Penn State, gets the assessment that I want to bring in for our kids. And they noticed she had something that was unique and elite in her vertical movement. She had an amazing year for Penn State. That doesn't happen if she doesn't have that assessment. So the very first thing I think of is like, well, that might be Brooklyn, who is going into ninth grade. She's already 5'9", 5'10", and really long and lanky. There might be something come out of her hand that a college coach would be like, Tony, I don't care how hard she's throwing or whether she's winning or not. I want those fingers. I want that true action on that ball. And so, man, the last thing, to be confident is one thing, but to think you know it all is you're an idiot. Like you're actually very ignorant, I guess.
What other, are any of the local teams, like is Mike or any of these other teams, are they using these advanced metrics from that company?
No, so I will say overall, generally with the travel ball world, and I will start with myself, right? Needs to understand, because the college coaches don't shove this down our throat, right? So just like being a firecracker, nobody's shoving it down your throat. It's there for you. So I can sit there and say, well, we don't need it. I teach function. Holly and I teach function in the range, right? I don't want another Bridget Nemeth story. And she wasn't even I'm just saying now with the select program. No, it's kind of there in front of you. It's more like an opportunity and more of an inspiration and not an obligation. Like I don't look at I'm more than happy to invest in that program. But anytime that I do something for any reason, I think of everyone that it could pertain to, which is why the select program even started. I was perfectly fine with other organizations picking off our kids at 12 and 14 because I'd never signed up to be to have this national team. That's not what I like. The organic homegrown kids that I can train all the time. But now working next to Mike, and then I'm going to be honest with you, when you talk about does Mike and who does it and who's way ahead of us, and I don't want to speak for Mike, but Mike is similar to me in our methods. Marty Tyson. He is absolutely amazing in what he does for his players, what he gets for the data, his timelines for recruiting, the instruction on when to go to camps, when not to go to camps. I'll give you a quick nugget. I tell all my 8th grade families, Marty, tell all my 8th grade families, don't you go to any camps your 8th grade year. Save all your money for your sophomore year because that's when you're going to camps. Okay? If you really want a September 1st deal, then you need to go 5 camps in August. So save your money before your junior year, the end of your sophomore year, and you do 4 to 5 camps in August if you really want someone to sign you by. And so there's a guy that's out of the same.
Yeah.
Well, and I'm looking at him going, I can only tell you one thing, Marty. Like, I have to be better.
I had a new respect for Marty in Florida when I was set up doing the game cast in the outfield, and his team was literally 20 yards away from me. And they sat there for an hour and a half and said, get your notebooks out. We're going to talk about tendencies. We're going to talk about this. We're going to talk about that. And I was just like, oh, my God, this guy went.
He brings the TV out. He does.
It's just absolutely amazing right then. And then he lit 2 kids up, and then he said, go practice. And then he brought these 2 kids over and gave them a hug and said, I'm just trying to make you better. And right then, all the years Marty kicked my ass and beat my teams, and right there I was just like, oh my God.
And all the things that you would have naturally thought, and that your parents naturally thought, and the things that people say, he knows it all.
Right then,
he knows everything that people
that's
say. He knows the
amazing.
perception, and he's like, I couldn't put a smaller piece of cheese on a fishing hook for all of you people to take, and you just take it all.
Yeah.
He doesn't have to bait the hook. He just does what he does, right? But when you get on that inside story, and I think that that's part of the part that I appreciate inside softball too, because if I just look at all the obvious bad behavior, lack of management, even stupidity and ignorance, behind all that are actually good people. Everyone was a kid that had a good time at one point in their life. Everyone does something for a living that they're good at, that they provide with. Even if you're at home raising kids, that is definitely its own skill. And then we get inside the softball world, and it's all over the place, completely unmanaged. In my lifetime, in my 59 years, the biggest factor that I've ever seen affect life in my 59 years was the internet. Because when the internet came out with no rules, I just, I'm Mr. Analogy guy. It would be like, we had cars but no roads, so then people built roads with no rules. So now you try to tell somebody you should really drive on one side of the road, so everyone drives on the same side of the road, and someone will go, I can drive wherever I want, so don't try to tell me. And by the way, you drive on the right. But you know what I mean? So now it's too late to incorporate those rules. So now what you have is constant opinions, constant, like I said, the barometer of society is there to a ridiculous degree right now. And so do people really feud, or are just generally people could be happier? Listen, I don't mind. If there's a story of dislike of me, and like I said, I've said this before, and there's a story of disrespect, make sure you tell that story. But all the guys talking behind my back, they can't really. And when I have had to call people out, that was painful for them. So I can understand why those guys hate me, and they've tried to run me into the ground, because that was pretty painful when you conducted yourself the way you did, and finally I put an end to it.
Yeah.
And so then you continued to conduct yourself that way, just as doing whatever you're doing.
So we've known each other for about 12 years, 13 years. And this was the first year you did the select. You've started it. So 9 months in, tell me what you think. Give me a grade that you think the select program's at.
A grade. Well, it's right on schedule. Like, it's right on schedule. I'm very happy with where it is.
Did you ever think when you started with 5 teams that it would come to this?
I never had that plan. So if I would have said, hey, I have a business plan and we could scale this, and this is the potential for this. A lot of business people talk about those things. Mm-hmm. I've never thought that way. I've never thought, how many championships could we win? How many in a row could we win? How many of this could we have? I've always just believed I want to have a good day today. This is the way I like to play the game. If I'm a shortstop, this is what I would want to do. Add in all the things that now my eyes know how to see, and for whatever things I can do to kind of create certain things. I'm appreciative, most of all for the opportunities it's giving me to help people. I'm thankful. That the imposter syndrome. I don't have imposter syndrome. I don't have that, but it is. There's your natural reactions to things, and then there's your training, right? So there's kind of a natural guilt for people that don't have.
Absolutely.
Right? But I've learned not to feel bad for that. But I'm very conscientious of still the have-nots, because that's what I come from.
I think it's been fantastic being a fly on the wall and kind of videoing this whole incubation of this thing, how well you and Sean have worked together. Because you are such different personalities. And he is so vivacious and gets so amped, and you kind of just take a deep breath.
I'm the same.
You are.
But I'm the same as him.
But I think the kids have loved it.
But I think that there's, look, the keyboard doesn't do a solo at the same time as the lead guitar player. Okay? They play 8 bars each, right? I think that, but the core ingredient or common denominator is love and respect. Everything else could have went another direction. Anything and everything else could have went another direction. Sean and I have been through a lot of things together, and not good or bad. Just we've been through a lot together. He's been here a long time, as
Yeah.
you. The dynamic was different because in another day and age, if I was younger, Sean probably wouldn't have lasted here very long. But I learned, don't be threatened by someone that does kind of what you do. Lock arms with them and respect them and admire it and give him a platform, just as, and I'm not saying he would do the same for me, but like allow him to be who he is. And that is so empowering. Like that is so rewarding to see people be successful.
Well, when you were managing the growth and the expansion was just exploding, you made him vice president, right? You made him an officer right away. So
Sure.
You must have seen something.
Sure, and it was value, right? And sometimes I may give you an office, and then watch what you do with it, right? So, but then also part of me is to say what that office is for and what responsibilities that come with it. So it wasn't like a vice presidency that had all these obligations and things,
Right.
but it was value. So again, and I'll say to Sean's credit, he might at one time thought that this is how you value me, and he found out no, he's not going to value me that way. Like he's not going to value me that. He'll show me value, and so through these experiences that he and I have had, ultimately, I believe, and you'd have to ask Sean, but I believe that it's a love over time and a true respect, and knowing that there's still always that little thing in there that if it's the wrong way, it blows up. If it goes wrong, it blows up. That's a good thing because it's you don't take anything for granted. So I would imagine when respect is there, then that respect is why I think once or twice or three times before I say anything. And I would say probably I don't like to speak for him, but I would imagine it's the same thing, right?
A little bit.
Normally, I'll just be candid. Don't give a fuck about what people think.
Yeah.
Honest. When it comes down to it, I don't give a fuck.
Life's too short.
So then when you have respect from someone and can give respect, it's another level. I know that most people not even won't understand or even care to hear about the dynamics that's happening with all of us at this higher level. And I think you said something earlier, like it is, I don't want to say intriguing or the irony and the fact that the perception is the opposite of the truth, right? But that makes the truth even better. Like it makes it like, oh my gosh! Like I would tell my mom, like Mom, they're doing math on Teams, and they think that we actually collect that for all the teams. Like they actually all pay on time, and that money just goes in my pocket. I go, Mom, I've heard of people inflating their income, saying that they make more than they really do. People do that for me. Like they inflate that perception of things, and she would just sit there and look at me because she was not a financial based person at all. And I would just say, Mom, I'm just telling you, like, it's really weird because they respond to love, yet they hate certain things about success.
People don't know how tough it is to run a company. And I think you've done a great job in managing growth. That's one of the things that's very hard to do. And I think you've done a good job with that.
I'd say without an overlying universal power or energy, that's the only thing that makes sense for this, Ben. Like I have these, I still call them childish qualities that are able to materialize to things that I do. But why me? There's so many people that I see that have talent, that have things, that have stuff. Like why me? Like why? I don't know if I'll ever write a book, but this would be an interesting chapter of maybe some life experiences that you can choose to believe that they validated because they forecasted things, or you could just say a coincidence, or maybe that was just a crazy person in your life that was selling snake oil. But there were enough things that happened to me growing up that explain what's happening now. But back then, I would say, "Come on, man! Like, give me a break. That's not going to happen."
Well, I think I've told you this, and I tell you this many times. Your consistency of message, since I've known you since 2007, when I walked in with my niece and my daughter, has always been the same. Nothing's changed.
That's what I am then, right?
That's what I'm saying. So I think that's your secret sauce, is you being consistent with your message. I still remember the day when you said, Ben, come on in. Gonna give you a team. Don't worry about championships. Just do the right thing. Be the same person you are.
Yeah.
And that's basically what I did.
I guess sometimes you have to hear, I was just fortunate athletically, fortunate. Like there was never a want or something that I felt short of, so I just felt fortunate. So I don't need it. I don't have to have that. If my ambition was, that's why I admire Mike, right, and Marty. Their ambition is to do these things, right? My ambition is just different. This background is part of my ambition. Like, it's just different ambitions. The things that drive me. I love the engagement. So now we're in summertime and we're getting ready, and so having this is the first year of the select teams competing championship play. What I don't like who I become. No, let me say this. That is part of it. I don't like the energy that it takes to master the attention to detail, to try to become the apex hunter in a tournament, because it's relentless. And we've done it a long time. I don't need to be on the ridge. I don't need to push the buttons. In fact, I don't want that. I want to develop. I want to see the industry grow. I love that, and that's why I think this thing with Sean is so great. I want to weaponize, our system, and build these players, and I think that part of it is really working out. I think that definitely we're more. What Sean has now that he didn't have 10 years ago is experience, right? Because his mindset, I'm sure, was relatable to mine back then. But he has this experience where he has carved out his own niche of success, and he's done a lot of good things. But I think he's more in line with what I do and the things that I prepare. And so hopefully, I don't know, like I would always tell people, the great thing about this game is, like, I could feel really good about this right now, and it completely falls to shit. Because it's like, the game just is not. It's like Vegas, man. Like, you just go there and you know what could happen. You hope for the best. So we'll do a check-in at the end of the summer. But I'm really excited. It's the first year of the program. I'm happy because it's okay how we've had these conversations. It can't move too fast. Can't take it out of the oven too fast. Can't expand to too many select teams too fast. What started happening right away is, so can we have a select team, or are we going to give me a select team, or whatever these things are. But you can't grow too fast, because it'll be like the Firecrackers, but the select team.
Did you think there would be so much interest in the select program when you started it? Did you think? Like I said, I think we had talked, and you'd said, man, I can't believe how many people are interested in what we're doing. So
I don't think about, will people be interested? It's always, creating response is always, I don't want to say it's always amazing, but when you get a response, I think that's, we do. We use this phrase a lot. Always amazing, never surprising. So I'm not surprised by it. And that could be about anything. Someone's crazy behavior. It's amazing, but I'm not surprised, No, again, I go into what we want to make happen on this particular day for these kids or players that are out here today. Now, can we capture a story? You can capture a story with a phone now, right? And so from that level of phone to what you guys are doing with this amazing tech stuff, I'm not surprised, because we've done this a long time. So. But this is not a culture-based select program. That's what the Firecrackers are, culture-based, with the opportunities to invest in teaching the game and coaching and stuff like that. Select program is, you want to be a great player, okay? You want to have get in line with the history of the best players in the Firecrackers or the best coaches. That's a different investment. And so for all of you that go, I can't believe he's charging for this, right? I always just say, tell me anything that you've invested in the Firecrackers that didn't come back to you 2, 3, 5-fold or 10-fold. And
I think players that are out of the organization that have graduated from college would tell you the same thing. Jessica and Caitlin and I talk about it all the time. How they still remember things you taught them that they're using. She's a physician. Jay's become a junior partner with Dora in her financial business. I mean, it's
So there's some good stories there. In fact, Danny Miller just reached out to me, Dr. Danny Miller now. She's been a doctor for probably 10 years now. One of the things that's interesting about the Huntington Beach Bar House, I used to have open hitting, right? And people are just different, and I know it's a little bit different. But I could probably count on both hands when they're there 10 years, the amount of people that said thank you for the free hitting. Then some people would walk in and go, we're here for the free hitting. And look at me like, can you get us a cage? Like I'm in the maitre d' or something. And I wouldn't get mad at people. I go, you created this, Tony. So you created this. So you didn't really have a role. So when they walk in and they just treat this like this is their entitlement to have free hitting, no appreciation, I sit there and I think you people are paying for things that you've heard the same thing over and over and over for 7 years, but you love your instructor. And, and if someone would say, hey, so can I pay? And I go, no, bring in some candy. So that was always my answer. Bring in some candy for the table of happiness if someone did like show appreciation. So back in the Huntington system, I would have a couple of kids, local kids, that would be there to volunteer and be like my right and left arms. They would, and every little thing to hear. If there was a rattle in the chute, and I'd look over. So Danny and Rachel Miller were two tremendous twins, and I think Danny told me she's doing some kind of high-level research or something. So they would come in and gung-ho, like, I don't want to give a bad analogy in case they were to hear this, but like the first time that they walked in, I had heard that they were coming in, the twins. And they walked in and they weren't identical, but you definitely saw they were twins. They both put their bags down, like at the same time. And somebody hit a ball hard. You could hear it, bang. And I don't know if it was Danny or Rachel. Turn around and goes like this. Yeah. And I looked, and I was like, oh, okay, that's good energy right there. So time over time, they're now helping assistants. And so I did a podcast that I might still be on the Apple podcast. I did one with Danny once. And so she told me they would get up early at 5 a.m, sometimes finish their homework, right? Go to school because they were mad students, right? Then they would go to practice, right? They get a little bit of lunch, right? Then they go to practice. Then right for practice, they would come to the warehouse. And she goes, Tony, sometimes like we'd only had lunch, but she goes, and then there it is, like it's 7:30 and we're a little tired. And you're looking at me like, you don't hear that noise, Miller? Like you don't hear that noise and you're going to be a doctor someday? Like, like you think you're going to be a doctor and you can't hear that flatlining? Like, I'm just making shit up right now. But, I would say that to her. I would go, you tired? Are you tired right now? Because it's been 10 hours. And so you're in the emergency room right now and you can't save my life because Miller, are you tired? Are you tired? Like just used to give her crap, man. And remember we used to roll the carpets up? You have to roll the carpets up, right? So, okay, a lot of times the carpets had a little wrinkle in them. Well, to me, that was you had to know where you were walking. So if you tripped on a wrinkle, didn't look at your down, didn't notice there was a wrinkle, and not going to notice there's a fault line that you're going to fall into, Miller? Like, oh, man, I just, like, beat her up. So now Dr. Danny is a doctor. So when she did this podcast, I said, so does anything ever kind of come back? And she goes, well... She goes, I was observing a surgery once and I walked to get something and I tripped on the cord and I pulled the monitor, the cord out of the monitor of like, it was that guy's heart or something like that. And she goes, and I thought of you. Yeah. And then she said, she goes, to this day, she goes, I always have a power bar in my white coat because I will not get caught being hungry because I could always hear you going, are you hungry, Miller? Did you not too much homework today? Too much of this stuff today, like that, and so that's pretty cool. But the training was like, I always feel like the sarcasm or the stuff that drove it home, right? Like, can you please serve it nicely, like dessert? So, and then we'll remember, we promise. No, you won't. I'm going to have to say, Miller, you tired? Miller. Now I'm get canceled for that stuff. But it's pretty awesome, that stuff. The Select program, you think about like what it is that we're trying to teach Select. There's the physical stuff that's obvious. But no, man, it's an understanding. It's an awareness of yourself, of what's going on. It's a projection. It's a behavior. It's a perspective. There's all of these things.
One thing I noticed you've been preaching a lot, not really preaching, telling the girls, and that did you do this with every team you had, was them developing a legacy. So I see the All-Americans out there on the wall. And again, this is only the second year I've been with you. I was always worried about my teams and practicing, so I never got to be the fly on the wall. But you've really tried to punch home the idea of, you know, you've got a great opportunity with all the good players on the select team, your legacy. Make your legacy here with the Firecrackers. Did you do that with Kai and Chamberlain and, you know, Ashley Hans? Was that something that you've consciously...
I'm much more conscious of this generation and putting that to them, because I realize that these players, and it's just the dynamics, like hearing about your older sister. Oh, your older sister. Never. It's like, I don't want to hear about my older sister anymore. So you're hearing that now, because I know, however it got back to me, that these players don't like to hear about the past all the time. So I think for this particular team, I started talking about what you can do for that, knowing that they may or may not even give a crap about their legacy or whatever. But it is an opportunity if you think about it. What will you be known for? And you know, is it just your stats or, you know, whatever, this or that? Every team has its legacy because there's a persona or personality of every single team. Like, you could probably give me a year and I could tell you something about that team that left its legacy inside the Firecrackers. So it's not always need to be a winning legacy. It's really the way you engage legacy, the way you went about it. When people watched your team play, I think that's another thing that I'm excited to see emerge of Sean and myself, with the two different atmospheres and environments. Same, but not. Similar, but not. But I think very compatible. So I think that's going to be kind of interesting. But no expectations, no, you know, and even if we're trying to build better odds for a winning team in today's day and age, because that's a challenge. So we won nationals in the 90s, we won a national championship in 2000s, and then we won a national championship between 2010 and 2. So we got 6 more years to figure out the 20s. But the change and the challenge and you know, there's a lot of people that would, I'm sure, have said, well, and fair, unfair to throw Mike in this, but, you know, the old school guys are irrelevant. Now we're the new, you know, I get that. When we can't step on the field during like go time in the summertime and times that we're really trying to win and we can't be competitive, I'm gone. Yeah. I'm out. I'm not, you know, but not being on top doesn't run someone away, because the challenge is to try to work yourself back into a certain competitive pocket. That's fun. Like, that's fun to try to perfect the dish that might not have been what it was, or the reviews of.
Well, like you said, I think it's exhausting. I don't know how you and Mike and Marty do it every year with the consistency, being that one of the top 10 teams every year.
So there comes a point, and you have to remember, everyone that knows softball knows kind of the dynamic change that I created here a few years ago. But like, even if I would have kept the model consistent from the 90s to the 2010s and then didn't create any changes for myself or whatever, these guys have a system. They know what they're doing. And then once you get that, and it's not like players are falling on their lap. I mean, they have their own, these programs have their own ways of getting players, right? We've always been like I defy the nonconformist, right? I defy what people say I'm supposed to do. So if you tell me I'm supposed to get a kid throwing this, I'm going to go, you know what? I'm going to get a kid throwing 57 and we're going to hit those spots and we're going to beat you. Or we're going to give you a game and then we beat you with that. And you kept telling me I needed to beat you with that. So that the select program now is on top of a system that works. It's now to give these players a place to be excited about, you know, and then it's not in competition with other orgs, but all of our players from all of our orgs are looking at each other, what they're doing, and you know what they get to experience and stuff. So you know, even this with the drones and the FCTV, but that's media addition to the select program. That's not the bells and whistles of why. That's just another caveat that kind of makes.
Well, I think it's going to really bring some great competition to the organization. I think with so many teams, and every kid's going to want to play on the select team or one of the select teams. I think that's a great thing.
Yeah, and then
it gives them something higher to look for.
I can't hear that without knowing that as what my position is in the organization, to not detach from those kids that didn't make that team, but to say, hey, look, so here's where you're at. Work yourself to be the best you can be and take one of those kids' spots, or take this and go somewhere else and beat us with it. Like, your success is equally important. There's only so many spots. Like, it's a great problem to have when you have an 18-player team and you can put any one of the 15 players in there because you have a couple pitchers only, and your lineup doesn't diminish at all. So now your problem is 4 of those great players aren't in the lineup. Good problem to have. You better have a really good relationship with those 4 players, or you plan on you prepare for them leaving. Mm-hmm. That's the way it goes. So no, I'm excited about. I'm having a blast working with these younger kids. I don't know. I just call it my backyard. Like, we were making stuff up last night, and then, like I said, I taped it, and I was like, that looks pretty good. But I get inspiration from some of these people I see online too. There's some really, really good instructors, and they're copy and mimic type things. There's nothing elaborate or extravagant, just cones, little hexagon deals to place your feet in stuff. So tennis balls, barehanded stuff. That's really the good news for all coaches too. Different things are going to appeal to different people. I think there's a lot of people that love softball, but for different reasons. Some people love it because they're ex-players, so they love the playing of it. Mm-hmm. Some people just love softball. They love coaching it, but they might not be so much into the teaching part of it. It might be just the competitive part of it. It might be the team building, the organization building. There's a lot of different ways to love softball. How do we all, say to each other, well, you might be really good at cooking in the kitchen, but you're running a restaurant, so then what are you going to do about keeping your tables clean? Or, there's a lot of that stuff kind of going on. So it's been a lot of fun, though. It's been a lot of fun. So what I like to do is this first year of the select teams here in SoCal kind of getting underway, my mind constantly spinning about the national select program. How do we identify select players? Because right now there's this really dangerous trap of recognition and what I call pure and true recognition versus being recognized so that you have a perceived value, and then to go into that kind of ugly lake, because right now a lot of that, the rankings to me, I will go on record as saying, you people know what it is. It's a bunch of crap is what it is. And I get it. We all have to find ways to satisfy our business needs. But man, that's an ugly thing right now. So that would make me stay away from a select recognition like that. But I will figure out a way for our best players in the country to be recognized, and then to give them an opportunity to level up their education. So in order for that to happen, that needs to be out of the oven by the time it gets to them, because it's not fair to them to have them invest in something and it's not out of the oven yet. I'm sorry. I've got principles of value for when you're charging for things. And one things that Mike Pristyko, I definitely agree when he says, you have multiple revenue streams and people are buying multiple ones. There should be even I call it appreciation. He just calls it a cost cut, right? And so all that goes into profit margins and everything else. How much room do you have to wiggle? I was talking about a guy with, he had a really cool design for a firecracker hat. And so, of course, when we talked costs and he gave me his costs, I'm like, I can't do it for that. And this probably isn't going to work because I know that you can't minimize your margin because you're in a mom and pop shop. Yep. So you can't minimize your margin, but I can't increase mine to that. So maybe I pay you for the design, and we take that and we'll figure out some kind of way to work together. But going into next fall, I would love to have certain sections of the select program, infielding, hitting. Ideally, I would love to be able to do once a month assessments, but you have to be careful on how many kids would then enter that program. And then realistically, like editing, great concept. How much time do you have? Time is a commodity to me, right? No range class tonight, we can do this, right? Time is extremely valuable. But how can we deliver something and then allow people to invest in it and then have some measurables or some tangible development, so that if you enter a Firecracker Select training program as a freshman, you're not going to be in the same place when you're a junior, because that to me it's too common in softball. Yeah, it's too common. I mean, I wouldn't be doing any of this if these kids weren't getting better. Like I couldn't do that. I could not do any of this if our kids or teams didn't get better.
So one last question I'm going to ask.
Yeah.
do you ever think, with what you're doing with Alliance and Marty and some of these other teams across the nation, do you ever think softball is going to unite or come together? You've brought
You're gonna have to clean out.
You brought Triple SA, Triple Crown, all these alphabet organizations together with Alliance, but there's still a few that are out there on the periphery. Do you ever think you guys are going to be able to bring softball together?
The core principles of the Alliance are true, but not realistic in this generation for the true camaraderie. Nobody wants to hear us say, we could have done it without any of you, and we don't need you, because that's the truth. We decided to collaborate for that exact reason, to show unity. We have not found one partner that could sit comfortably next to us. Not one. So when I say comfortably, hey, this is awesome. My words, let's do this. Let's work out this. Not one partner. But what I feel good is that we tried.
Mm-hmm.
We tried, right? You're going to be an event company. No, we really didn't want to be. But if we partner with event companies that in the end aren't compatible for how we see partners, and that's not an ego thing. It's just like what's right, like a trust, security. Let's just start with those two words. Well, if that doesn't, we don't find it, then we're not going to partner with you in the future. That makes no sense, right? Why would I want to lock into a 20-year contract with you and you're questioning everything that we do and it doesn't feel right? This isn't like that. This isn't an Arby's, So,
because like I said, I think when you started it a few years back, I was amazed that, USA Preps, USA Softball, everyone was really
USSSA, Triple Crown, and they're all to some degree like USA Softball, right? The intention was there and the effort was there, and I'm sure they would all have their own versions. Because when I hear their versions, to me, I'm like, okay, if that's your perception of this relationship, why would we want to keep working together? And I would just say that to anybody out there. If this is the partnership and there's no trust and you can't pinpoint anything other than a perception and a fear or what other people say we're going to do, why would we do this? Let's just cut it and go, and you do your thing. We tried, right? But to force this into a room, no, sorry. I don't sign up for that. I'm never going to sign up for that. So the answer is inside the Alliance and the core leadership of the Alliance, it's beautiful. Like it's not a two-person room that believe in these principles. There's 5 to 15 people that would sit in a boardroom and no one's going to fight for an outside agenda or nothing. We're going to sit. It's like the seatings committee for the Alliance. Don Menard's in that. Derek Allister's in that. Don just told our team this weekend, you heard him say, I'm not going to lie. I'm going to judge this team based on what I think you can do. I remember one year, because we had an up and down year and he had a seat at 7th. Not he, the seatings committee put it 7th and people were like, they should be 7th. We came in 5th that year or 3rd. So the seatings committee, just like the I don't want to say like the Class A members or Class B members, but the Class A members really the founders, right? The co-founders. This is a really good room, but we realized how long it's going to take to reach the peripheral. So it won't happen in my lifetime across the board in softball, but we have the right people right now, especially the younger ones that will be here a little longer. So it'll be in their lifetime and then probably half of their kids' lifetime. So realistically, 2064, I see in my mind, before you go to a softball game, a softball tournament, be a fly on the wall inside a softball enterprise or entity and go, looks good.
Yeah.
These people have the right idea, and they don't sit with knives behind their back. They're not bad-mouthing competition. They're not. No, not in this lifetime.
And it's not about the almighty dollar.
But it's not about. But even if that is for people, doesn't make it wrong for them, as long as they're upfront about it, right? There's nothing wrong with capitalism. Now I hear this from people that say that, not because I ever even knew what capitalism was, but what's wrong? That's what this country's about. I get it though. There becomes a separation. I get that part of it. But I'm not saying that in a discouraging way. That discourages me. That's just a fact because of what we're dealing with. There's the lake is polluted. It ain't gonna happen. All we can do is start to have algae in your pool. Right, the pool guy comes, puts a little bit into it. It doesn't happen right away. And if it's lucky, hey, I'll be out by next week. We got a lot of algae we need to get out, but most of it is just human emotions and unmanaged. And if people would just go back to core principles of love and respect and think of things that are good in their life and go, that's where it all starts, Ben. It doesn't start with any other reason. So, anyways, yeah, to answer that question. I definitely have hope, but it's like a game. It's not about a have to outcome. If it ends up working, great. If not, I feel really good about how we did this. This makes me feel good about my last chapter in coaching, however long that is. That's not just player development, winning games. We're trying to be competitive. It's much bigger stuff. So just like the fight of the game, the experience of life, whether it's Alliance or the range, Firecrackers, anything, stuff we haven't even done yet. It's just this is Johnny Carson.
Yeah.
What does he do with it? When he does his little pencil all the time and stuff like that. This is just make-believe. Why not, man? This was a good time. It was a good conversation. Realistically, if this was an hour and 10 minutes, we probably got 20, 25 minutes of good stuff in here, engaging. But a lot of this was just conversation. Want to hear me and Ben bullshit? Well, you heard a little bit of it tonight. But all of this is even prepping for when we can boom and, hey, let's go to that clip and let's do this and let's pull it up and, hey, check this out because this is where this is where we worked on the bouncers on Sunday and then the bouncers won the game for Texas on Monday or whatever that was. And that was just crazy to watch all that stuff kind of go down the way it did. So anyways, appreciate everything you're doing. Keep up the good work. And like I say, between my standards, I'm out to protect your experience too. So that's why I say the things I say.
Like I said, Cap, I appreciate you letting me be part of this. So.
All right. Well, till next time, my friend. Applause. Hey.